Woo! What's up, guys? 619 said only 15 minutes late. Yeah, guys, I had all of my show notes and everything prepared, and then my Google Chrome went crazy and forced me to close it, and I couldn't restore everything I'd opened. So that was really frustrating. I had to go back through and get everything set back up. So sorry for the delay, guys. Is that a pumpkin spice candle? It is a seasonal candle for sure. I believe, you know what? I think it's like apple cider, actually. So close. Man, it is it's fall. It doesn't feel like fall. In Chicago, it's like freaking 80 degrees today. What's going on with that? Crazy. I'm back in my normal studio. Let's see what it is. 75 degrees, man. This is nuts. Look at William. He's in Finland. I love Finland, man. I've been out to Finland before. Freaking awesome. Is it when I was there, the days were like 16 hours of sunlight, but it depends on what time of the year it is there. Sometimes it's really short days. That kind of be depressing, I think. But anyway, 72.5 according to WXM. Huh. Weather XM. Where in Chicago? I don't know, man. It is hyper local, so maybe in certain areas, but 72.5. That's pretty precise. I live near Lakeshore. I live right by the lake, so weather is a little bit different here. Let's see. Mr. Bowman said it's so nice. Mr. Bowman lives in Chicago as well. We've got DePIN tokens are not a security. Woo! Guys, this is probably the biggest news we've had for DePIN all year for sure. This is absolutely massive. We're going to talk about that today. There's William. Let's go. Let's go. We moon soon. He said, oh, at your house. Okay. All right. Guys, I mean, 72.5 Fahrenheit for people that are watching the U.S. Fahrenheit. Okay, not to be confused with Celsius. That's perfect temperature, man, in my opinion. You can rock shorts. You could still get away with rocking, jeans if you want to get out. It's a perfect temperature, man. We got Holy in the house. Let's go DePIN. Yeah. Let's go. Oh, man. 619 said you're going to travel to Phoenix, but got 3 inches of rain in 1 hour. Damn, that's crazy, actually. That's a lot of rain, man. Oh, how's everybody doing today, man? I was in St. Louis last week. I had my grand piano behind me in the background. I'm back in my normal. So you all got his candles now. Man, what an update though on DePIN. We got other stuff happening though too, man. We've got like government shutdowns looming. What's that going to do to markets? As we have some big news, not just on the DePIN side, but from the SEC. There's a lot of big things happening right now. I think, is it going to be October? October, baby. That's what we're talking about. Q4. We've been prepping for it for Q4 for some time now. We've been talking about it. We did see that flush out at the end of September. We were hoping we wouldn't see, but we talked about why that was a potential outcome, and that's what happened. And it's okay. It's okay. Things are looking up, guys. Let's talk about a fun story though before we get into the serious stuff, the super serious stuff. I always like to talk about some medical advancements, some technological advancements. I thought this was freaking wild, man. So China's oyster-inspired bone glue bonds fractures. So it says this new bioglue mimics oysters, fixing shattered bones in 3 minutes without major surgery. Well, that seems pretty crazy. It's called Bone 02, inspired by oysters. The new glue is designed to repair broken bones quickly without the need for metal plates, screws, or big surgeries. It bonds bone fragments together in 2 to 3 minutes, even in blood-rich areas where most adhesives would fail. Let's see here. It says the glue is also biodegradable, meaning the body absorbs it as the bone heals, so no second surgery is needed to remove implants. Early tests suggested safe and effective, lowering infection risk compared to metal hardware. Says if clinical trials continue to confirm these results, this could be a major shift in orthopedic surgery especially for complex fracture like shattered bones from accidents. I don't know if you all saw Tyreek Hill in the game last night. That was disgusting. Maybe this would help him. I don't know. Instead of being rebuilt with plates and screws, bones could essentially be glued back together and left to heal naturally. So, how about that? That's kind of cool. I'm not trying to go out and break any bones, but you don't know. Things happen, guys. All right, let's talk about the government shutdown. This is a big deal. We talked about it last week. We were like, hey, this could be coming up. And certainly here we are tomorrow, guys. 88% chance of a government shutdown tomorrow. Ooh, what does that mean for markets? We're seeing a little bit of a sell-off. I mean, if you look back in history, guys, we don't have a huge sample size necessarily, especially since Bitcoin's been around at least, and what the crypto markets could do. But we did see this big shutdown back in 2018. I did look back, and I believe we saw like a 12% drop in the price of Bitcoin back then. But man, we are in a totally different world today. So, I mean, that's all we can really go off of is what we saw the most recent shutdown. Now, will we see them come together in the final hour and get things done? I don't know. I would say I doubt it. Doesn't seem like it's going to happen. My take on this is I don't think markets are going to act favorably, to this news. Like, if they do come together and they announce that like they've come up with a budget they agree on, and we avert having a government shutdown, I think the markets would certainly rally behind that. But how much will it drop? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, but I don't think we're going to see like super bullish price activity tomorrow if we do see a shutdown. That's all I'm saying. Maybe it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm playing for Q4 at least right now. So if we see any major dips, I'm not too worried about it. And I don't think it's going to be a super long situation. But we'll see. He says that another shut. I thought there was one not long ago, really around 2018. It does feel like it was a lot more recent, doesn't it? Like, 'cause I remember the national parks were shut down. People were making such a big deal out of it. And it's hard for me to believe that it was like 7 years ago now, but apparently that's the case. I had to double check that myself. But here's what it could look like, guys, for a government shutdown. Because there's a lot of people out there spreading, fudding that everything's going to be shut down. Our whole, world is going to, the sky is falling. Oh, man. Okay. So I just want to break down a few things that could be impacted here. It says you're flying soon. Air traffic controllers and most Transportation Security Administration employees are considered essential workers. Okay. So that they have to stay on the job regardless. If we're looking at mail, it says that mail will continue moving as usual in the event of a government shutdown. Social Security benefits will continue. It says there could be delay in services like processing applications, but otherwise, nothing to worry about there. Says that there could be missed paychecks and lost jobs, though. Okay, so the biggest impacts could be felt by federal workers and active duty military service members who will not receive a paycheck during the government shutdown. Okay, so this would start having an impact toward the end of the pay period. So the first paycheck for federal employees would be on October 24th. Military would be October 15th. So, of course, if they come up with a resolution before that, then that wouldn't be an issue. This is only if we saw a prolonged situation. Says the only salaries the federal government will continue to pay during a shutdown will be members of Congress and the president. Of course, Trump generally does donate his salary, which can't feel too bad for him considering he's made billions of dollars on crypto this year. But hey, neither here nor there. But it does say that, however, elected officials can request that their paychecks be deferred while a government shutdown is ongoing. So they'll get back pay, okay, once things recover. It says the national parks are a big question mark. During 2018 and 2019, that's when they did keep the parks open. I remember this was a huge point of contention. So everyone was taking pictures. There's trash all over the parks. Like everything was like all messed up. And there's a lot of flack for that. It says also that weather forecasts will continue. National Weather Service said it will continue to provide routine forecast as well as extreme weather watch and warning information. Okay. Unleashing Demon says Congress getting paid during a shutdown is horrible. I agree. I think that's complete bullshit. So I agree with you on that, sir. FEMA will continue working, although their funding is running dangerously low and needs to get approval for more funds. And really, that's the main meat and potatoes there, guys. Not to say it's not going to have an impact. It certainly will. But not as much of an impact as some of the headlines are saying. The sky is falling, the world's ending. Some silver lining here. If you live in DC, if you're a government employee, they have happy hours, all day happy hours. Actually, they said that many places offer deals only to ID carrying federal workers. So while everyone is unable to go to work and get paid, they're all getting drunk at happy hour. So that's cool. That's maybe some silver lining. I don't know. You guys may have seen this though in the news. So again, we'll have to see how the markets react to this. I don't think it'll be positive. Once we have a resolution, I expect markets will rally. This one's been going around though. I'm seeing this. It's like, oh shit. Everyone's must be super upset. 100,000 federal workers just quit. All quit at once. Like, what is going on here? Oh, well, let's look at the details, guys. You got to look at the details. 100,000 federal workers are set to formally quit in what will constitute the largest mass resignation of government workers in U.S. history. The resignations, which come part of a program drawn up by Trump at the start of his second administration. So this started earlier this year, guys. And it will happen on Tuesday as Congress is facing a deadline on the same day. But this has been a planned event, guys. This is not like out of the blue. It wasn't like everyone just like called each other like, hey, let's quit tomorrow. Okay. That's what the headlines are making it seem like. When I saw this, I was like, oh, that's kind of a big deal. And then you read into it and you're like, oh, maybe not as big of a deal. Okay. Says that it could disrupt services, including the Department, the VA, Department of Social Security Administration. An increasing number of unemployed adults will also be looking for jobs now. Okay, so that could certainly hurt the job markets in that outlook. It says the planned, here it is again, the planned 100,000 resignations come as part of this program known as the Deferred Resignation Program. Says according to the Senate Democrats report in July, it'll cost $14.8 billion as 200,000 workers will be paid their full salary and benefits while on administrative leave for up to 8 months. Okay, so this has been something that's been planned for a while. Nothing crazy. Of course, if we look at this, the overall picture here of what this actually means. So, what did Tyler say? Day drinking for government employees while the government shutdown feels like a solid plan. I don't know. Maybe I'll go work for the government for a week. Doesn't sound so bad. Just kidding, guys. All right. But let's look at the overall picture here. Okay, because there's a lot of people that are super pissed off about government cuts. This is, a chart of the federal employees over the last 10 years. And you see, obviously, there's a huge spike around COVID. Okay, they had to hire a bunch of people in the health services sector. But you'll see under Biden, guys, there was a huge hiring spree on the federal employees. Okay, and this largely masked the job market because we were hiring a lot of federal employees. Obviously, then they also lied about the jobs, they overestimated the jobs. Okay, but this is what they're doing right now. Basically, is like you're getting us returned back to where a lot of these job numbers were. Okay, after this massive hiring spree under the last administration. Okay. Not to say it's a good thing that people are losing their jobs. It's not a good thing. Okay. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that, for all the people kicking and screaming, we also need to consider all the facts here. And that is that we did inflate the amount of federal jobs very substantially. Okay. And I thought this was interesting looking at where those jobs were added under the last administration. A lot at the state level, a lot at the Human Health Services, the VA, Department of Defense and Commerce were the only ones that were down. So these are huge increases in the federal workforce in these different departments. In particular, when you look at the agency workforces under Biden, USAID had a 35% increase, 30% increase under the last 4 years. So kind of interesting when you break down all the numbers there. Okay, so again, it could have a negative impact on the job market. It's going to lead to more unemployed people for sure. But, it's not like we're just like cutting all these jobs that have been there forever. A lot of these were jobs that were added over the last 4 years, and now we are cutting spending. And it kind of is.
This is maybe the OG Doge, and the Democrats applauded him for doing this.
We cut the federal government by
Similar
more
here.
than 100,000 positions. We're on the way to reducing it with laws already passed by 272,000 positions, making it the smallest it's been in more than 30 years.
So we saw something similar. I'm not saying it's the same. Something similar under Clinton. He cut a lot of government jobs. He actually was the last president to have a budget surplus. Now, you might disagree with the way Trump's doing it versus how Clinton did it. That's totally fair. But I will say things are different in this sense. We have $37.5 trillion in national debt. Okay. We're not getting to a budget surplus anytime soon, y'all. When you consider that the interest payments on our debt are over $1 trillion a year, guys, the entire amount of revenue generated from income tax this year, from personal and from corporate, is like 5.5 trillion. So just under 20% of all of our tax revenue is going to interest payments. That is awful. Absolutely awful. I thought this is interesting. They are estimating what the annual income from tariff revenue will be. $675 billion. It's not a small number. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But guys, yeah, this is very different from when Clinton was in office. We are in a big hole here. Not pretty. Okay. But let's talk about what's going on with OPEC and oil prices, because there's some news coming out there. You might see that oil prices are down today. We'll show that in a second. There were some reports that came out that OPEC was going to increase oil production by 500,000 barrels per day. OPEC came out today, though, earlier this morning, and said that they hit out at recent media reports claiming that the group of 8, the G8 countries, were planning to increase production per day. These claims are wholly inaccurate and misleading, they say. Discussions about the upcoming meeting have not yet begun, according to the statement. Consequently, the OPEC Secretariat strongly urges media outlets to exercise accuracy and responsibility in the reporting in order to avoid fueling unnecessary speculation in the oil market. Well, it certainly didn't stop the speculation, because we've seen oil prices down about 3% over the last 5 days. Today, down pretty drastically. So, obviously, people did take those reports seriously. We'll to see if that ends up coming to fruition. Now, 500,000 barrels, I thought this was a fun fact. Seems like a big number, but is it really? Okay, and why do the oil prices matter at all? Well, for one, oil prices have a huge impact on inflation, guys. If you look at oil prices against U.S. inflation, look at the correlation here. And it makes sense. Oil goes into manufacturing, it goes into transit, it goes into a lot of the costs that go into the different products, different services, things in the economy. Okay, so that is why oil prices matter. If we can get oil prices to continue driving those down, well, shoot, that's good for inflation. You know what that means? It means the Fed can cut rates more. Okay, so that is good for all of us. Especially in risk on assets. But 500,000 barrels per day. Does that really put a dent in things? I thought this was interesting. I went down a rabbit hole on oil consumption and production like a year ago. How many million barrels of oil do you think we use globally per day? Okay, let me ask that. Well, I'll give you the answer. It's 105.5 million barrels of oil consumed per day. Okay, so yes, 500,000 barrels per day. It makes a little bit of a difference. But in the grand scheme of things, guys, it's less than 1%. Less than 0.5%. Sorry. Less than 0.5% of global oil consumption. I mean, that is a huge freaking number, guys. That is nuts. Who's the biggest consumer? You guys know who the biggest consumer of oil is? It's not China. China's second. We are the largest. We are consuming, the United States, over 20% of the global oil per day. Whew. Man, that's a big number. So Yeah, 500,000, when you put it in perspective, doesn't seem like a big deal. But if it does drive oil prices down, it could be good for inflation. Okay, that's the main takeaway there. One other thing I want to cover on the macro side, we talked about this last week about the Trump administration possibly declaring a national emergency for housing. Well, here's something new that's being floated. I thought this was worth bringing up. The no tax on capital gains for home sales. Because one of the things we're seeing for sure, and this is from our earlier, but he spoke on this again recently. One of the things we're seeing, guys, is that the home supply, while it is starting to grow and exceed home buyers, a lot of supply needs to get unlocked. We need to start seeing some movement in the real estate markets. Okay, says that Trump is considering ending capital gains taxes on home sales to boost the housing market. As home values rise, certain individuals, such as longtime home owners, are more likely to exceed 250,000, 500,000 thresholds, which could trigger capital gains taxes. Okay, and here's Trump talking about just that in this clip here.
That's going to basically eliminate no capital gains tax on home sales to be able to free up the money. People who've owned a house for a long time can't afford to pay the capital gains.
Yeah, well, we're looking at that, and it could be a very big positive. I don't think for you, because you make so much money, it doesn't matter. But I think it's going to be a great incentive for a lot of people that really need money.
So between that and Jerome Powell stepping down, that could really boost home sales.
Well, I think if Jerome Powell stepped down, it would be a great thing. I don't know that he's going to, but he should.
He takes a dig at Jerome Powell every second. It's so funny. He's such a troll. Jerome Powell's not going to step down. Let's be real. But will he drop rates more? Let's take a look at Poly Market. Update here, 89%. This has been shifting quite a bit actually this morning, but 89% that we will see a rate cut in the upcoming October session. Of course, we have 2 more FOMC meetings this year where they can adjust rates. December, we're looking at 75% right now. So the likelihood right now is 2 more rate cuts this year. And that's what's being baked into markets already, guys. Let's be real. That is the guidance from the last FOMC meeting was. Anything other than that would be definitely a surprise. Okay, so something to keep an eye on for sure. Obviously, that's looking a little bit further out. Big threat right now, I would say, is the government shutdown. How are the markets going to react to that? Well, let's talk about the crypto side of things. We got Joe in the house saying, woo. Debt will never be paid off. 37 trillion. Everybody would have to pay 275,000. Yeah, no, that's not gonna, I don't think the debt's gonna be paid off either. In fact, you say per person, if you look at this, actually per taxpayer, $324,000 per taxpayer. So yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. What did Joe say? Tariffs will pay off the debt. I don't know about that, but $675 billion, if they actually do pull that in tariffs, that's not a nothing burger, guys. That is a real number for sure. And what we're seeing so far is that it has not added that much to inflation at all. So we talked about that last week. Just as his B is finally earning semi-decent, I'm seeing the same thing. I'm hearing the same thing. I'm seeing the same thing. I think the adjustments from the MIPs are making a difference, guys. Let's talk about crypto. We'll talk about broader crypto, and we'll talk about DePIN because there's some big news there. Chinese woman convicted of after world's biggest Bitcoin seizure. How about that? This is big news that broke this morning. I did double check this. It's like 61,000. So this is a Chinese national that was in UK, was arrested. Metropolitan Police in the UK said that they recovered 61,000 Bitcoin worth $6.7 billion US at current prices. That's actually insane. I mean, she had to have been like the largest holder outside of like MicroStrategy. You know, obviously countries like the US have more, but like that's such a big number. What happened was between 2014 and 2017, They led a large-scale scam in China, which involved cheating more than 128,000 victims and storing the stolen funds and Bitcoin assets. So, wow. So they scammed these people out of their money, bought Bitcoin, and then sat on it. Says by pleading guilty today, Ms. Zhang hopes to bring some comfort to investors who have waited since 2017 for compensation and to reassure them that the significant rise in cryptocurrency values means that there are more than sufficient funds available to repay their losses. Shit, man. I wish she had stolen from me. Forced me to buy Bitcoin in freaking 2014, 2017 and diamond hand till now. Are you fucking kidding me? What? Where was I in this? Come on, man. That's insane. All right. Well, the big question though is like, are they going to get compensated for what they lost? And then who holds the rest? Who holds the extra value there? That's what I want to know. Wish I was a lawyer on that case. Woo. So Win 44 laundered the proceeds from the scam and moved from living above a restaurant to a multi-million pound rented house in North London. So she's sitting on billions of dollars just chilling, living above a restaurant. That's funny. She also bought 2 properties in Dubai worth more than 500,000 pounds. Interesting. So that's a big seizure. Now the question is, like, how does that get dispersed? How long is it's going to be held up in legal shit for a while? I'm sure. Yes. Who owns it? That's the question. Like now, who owns it? So let's just hope that it's stuck in legal proceedings for a while, because the last thing we want is the UK to just sell 61,000 Bitcoin in the open market. That would suck. But that's a big deal, guys. That's a huge seizure. Hasn't really impacted the price of Bitcoin too much at this point. I think it might be a while before that happens. You look at what happened with Mt. Gox, some of these other things, like granted that was in the US, but a lot of times those things can be held up for years before they'd be able to sell it. Let's hope that's the case there. Bitcoin, man, we are at over 114,000. Huh. Well, let's see. That's not bad, guys. I mean, for where the markets have been, we saw a huge drop last week. Everyone was calling for under 100,000. I don't know, man. I was feeling a lot more bearish in mid-September going into the FOMC meeting because everyone was like, "Oh, we're gonna keep pumping," and I was like, "I don't know, man. Like, a buy the rumor, sell the news event is definitely on the table, and I think we saw that." But now you see a lot of people, and I'm going to show some different posts because crypto Twitter is so funny, guys. Like, there's a lot of people with big followings, and everyone's all over the place. I'm gonna show you some of this, but ultimately, though, guys, I think things are looking pretty healthy, and I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about October, frankly. And we're going to talk about what those different catalysts are. If you look at the overall market cap of crypto, just under $4 trillion, 3.9 trillion. There's some people, there's some people that are like, I think 4 trillion is a big, psychological number for people. I'm like, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if people are like, I don't know if I'm going to buy 100, Bitcoin at 114,000 because the crypto market cap is 3.9 trillion. I don't know if I buy into that, man. But I do buy into the fear and greed index for sure, particularly this one sitting at a 50. So, this is something we've seen throughout this market cycle, at least. Things have not topped until we get up to upper 80s to 90 on this index. We have not been there for quite some time, really, since last December. We saw right back here, right around Thanksgiving, and then again after we see that hit 3 weeks later, every time the market has topped. So we are obviously not there right now. So that makes me feel like we still have some reasons to be optimistic about Q4. I don't think we're closing in on a top, but there are people certainly calling for a top. One person that's calling for things not to have topped is CZ. He said, not predicting the future, and don't get too excited, but September in a fast, his first crypto cycle. Obviously, we saw a big move from here. It's back in 2017. So could we see something similar to what we saw in 2017? Maybe. Maybe. Look at this guy. You got a big following. The biggest altcoin season ever is starting in October. FTX refunds $5 billion. I don't think that's actually true. I'm going to talk about that. I don't think it's $5 billion. And Fed cuts rate two times, so we could see 2 more rate cuts this year. Every $100 guy is going to turn into 100,000 in a few days. Better get into crypto, guys. Like these posts are funny to me. What sucks is people like coming into crypto and they're like, "Holy shit, $100 to 100,000 in a few days? No way." Yeah, okay. Oh man, what about this one? This guy says altcoin market cap just got rejected at resistance. That's ugly, guys. Expect more chop, more bleed, more pain. The bottom isn't here yet. Okay, well, so one person thinks that we're turning $100,000 into $100,000 later this week. The next person says that we're going to drop. Well, that's a big drop that they have there. Interesting. Okay. Oh, alt season bull trap confirmed. Altcoins need to cool off. Good chance to buy more. Look at this nice little line they drew. Okay. Will we see that come to fruition? I don't know. And I saw this one. Carl Moon, he's got a pretty big following. He said alt season's here, guys. Altcoins just went parabolic. Retail FOMO is waking up. Check out this search term for altcoins. Well, it just went parabolic, guys. I looked it up myself. Over the past 7 days, which he had it set to. Yes, it did. But we had a little bit more context over the last 12 months. It does not look that great, does it? Guys, you can make charts look how you want them to look. We saw the big move really back in August. All that to say, what is going to happen? These people don't fucking know, man. They don't know what's going to happen. They put out stuff for engagement. Okay, they're baiting people into engaging on their posts. No one really knows. What we can do is look at what catalysts are coming, though, and come up with our own thesis. And somewhere it probably lies somewhere in between. You're probably not going to turn $100 into $100,000 tomorrow, guys. It's probably not going to happen. I hate to tell you, but there are catalysts coming. Let's talk about those. FTX to pay out an additional $1.6 billion to creditors in its third distribution. Okay, so not $5 billion, but $1.6 billion is going out starting September 30th, starting today. So it's the first distribution. If you guys remember, this happened when Sam Bankman-Fried took customer funds, invested them. CZ basically called it out and caused the collapse of FTX. You know what sucks for these people though? They held crypto on FTX exchange, but they're getting paid out in USDC and stable coins. They're not getting paid out in the actual assets. So if they held Bitcoin, for example, on FTX, let's say they had 1 Bitcoin on there, they're not getting paid out 1 Bitcoin. They're getting paid out at the price Bitcoin was at when the legal proceedings were filed. And I think Bitcoin was like $22,000 then. So people are pissed. They talk about that down here. It says, let's see, it's starting at the beginning of the month, the third distribution. Former users have expressed frustration with the process, arguing that the state's cash payouts are worth far less than their crypto assets would be worth today had they not been liquidated, given the market rebound. So that's the difference between being paid what they call in kind. So in kind would be that you're paid in the assets you were holding. They're not being paid in kind. They're being paid at a hefty discount based on the prices back then. So that sucks for those people. I do feel bad. Earlier this year, at least the people that were holding ETH, it was the same price as it was like 4 years ago. So they weren't too bad. ETH has obviously climbed since then, but this is still a big deal, guys. I mean, it's 1.6 billion that is potentially going to hit the market. We'll see how much of that does hit the market. The other one, I think this is massive, is the SEC chair, Atkins, came out and said that crypto is job number 1 for the U.S. SEC. Says that both the SEC and the CFTC, of course, if it's a security, it falls under SEC. If it's a commodity, it falls under CFTC. But for the first time, both agencies are moving forward in lockstep. Okay, so this is a big deal. Atkins, who's the chairman of the SEC, said that it's the top priority. Says here that it's job number 1. They're focused on harmonizing policy work with the sister regulator, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Our two agencies must work in lockstep. What matters is building a framework where our agencies can coordinate seamlessly. It's a new day and the turf war is over. So you guys know, like under the last administration, they were trying to go at crypto every which way that they could. You had SEC really going after all of the projects. Gary Gensler was not a very popular person amongst people in the crypto industry. Says that he commented on working with CFTC leadership under FAM, with whom he's been working together on crypto initiatives. On the sidelines of the roundtable event, the SEC chairman told reporters that obviously top priority right now is crypto. Okay, so big news there. Regulation is opening up for crypto. They are moving forward to foster innovation. One of the things that came up is that they are looking to tokenize equities. So basically working with, in this case, New York Stock Exchange, the largest stock exchange in the world, is meeting with the SEC Crypto Task Force, guys. They're going to tokenize stocks. I mean, they've already started doing this, but everything is moving on chain right now. So that's a big deal, obviously. But what about this one? The number of spot crypto ETFs and many more funds are about to boom, okay? And this is something we've been covering a lot over the last few months and what's coming up here in October. Says that crypto ETFs covering more digital currencies such as Solana and XRP are expected in the months ahead. There's an expedited listing process. I've talked about that ad nauseum. We'll touch on it briefly here again, but says that the thousands of new ETFs may hit the market covering a wide range of traditional investment strategies. Okay. Within the next 60 to 90 days, we'll have a dozen or so new crypto-oriented products tracking things like Solana, XRP, and coins that people know and coins that people don't know about that are below Bitcoin and Ethereum. The ones everybody knows. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of altcoin ETFs launching, in other words. I thought I had something else on here. Let's see. Oh, I do. So this was from Bloomberg's Eric Balchunas. He said the odds are at 100% now because they have these generic listing standards that the SEC has approved, basically speeding up the approval process. But they're saying now that the sole ETFs, spot ETFs, are at 100% likelihood of getting approved. Here we go. October is ETF month. So October is, guys, this is a big deal. All these ETFs are going to give a pathway for institutional money to come in, okay? For traditional finance to come into the space. We've already seen it with Ethereum, with Bitcoin. We see what's happened with the price there. Now we're going to see it for Solana and some of these other, asset classes. That's big. It's a big deal. Okay. Says that the crypto industry could be set up for a flood of new crypto exchange traded funds in October. Many of them have final decisions on 16 crypto ETFs next month. The first one is on October 2nd, so that's only in a few days. If this one gets approved, the Canaries Litecoin ETF, you better believe we're going to start seeing Solana and some of these other assets really start to move up. Because if that one gets approved, that means the others are going to get approved, in other words. Because we have Solana and Litecoin through Grayscale coming up on October 10th, and there's a large number of other ones throughout October. So this one, October 2nd, that's only in a couple of days, guys, Thursday. If this Litecoin ETF gets approved on Thursday, I would think that we're going to see a big rally on all of these other assets that have, pending ETFs. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. Enormous next few weeks for spot crypto ETFs, deadlines approaching, etc. I actually have a list here of the Solana ones. You can see here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 ETFs. You have a handful of spot ETFs. You can see this one. We talked about how this one got approved, this Rex Osprey one. I'm actually going to post a separate video where I clip that out but I also posted on X. But regardless, guys, there are a lot of Solana ETFs coming. Okay. So October could be massive, a massive month for those assets. Now, the other thing, and I posted about this last night, guys, and this is, again, the biggest news we've seen for DePIN, definitely all year, potentially over the last few years, guys. Official statement on the SEC website concludes that DePIN does not satisfy the Howey test. Okay, so if you satisfy the Howey test, that means that you are classified as a security. You fall under the SEC. In this case, it says it does not satisfy that test, and therefore it does not fall under the SEC as a security. This is freaking huge news, guys. Okay. This was also posted by Hester Pierce herself, the crypto mom. Okay. This is on Trump's, part of Trump's cabinet here. SEC staff issued a DePIN no action letter today. She posted that same link, and here it is. And I highlighted the main part here, but they talk about, looking at DePIN. Is it a security? Is it not a security? DePIN networks programmatically, I don't know why that's hard for me to say, distribute such tokens to users who participate in the network in accordance with network rules. Accordingly, the Howey test is not satisfied. Okay, the economic reality of DePIN projects differs fundamentally from the capital raising transactions Congress charged this commission with regulating. Treating such tokens as securities would suppress the growth of networks of distributed providers of services. So that is, guys, that is fucking huge. Okay, I don't even know how, can't explain how big of a deal this is. It was not long ago, I had Ariel on one of my spaces earlier this year. A lot of these DePIN founders would not even go to Washington, D.C., wouldn't go to Capitol Hill because they were worried that they would be on the radar of Gary Gensler and he would try to shut them down. Okay. And now we get this no action letter specifying that DePIN projects are not going to be securities. This is such big news. Okay. Very, very exciting for DePIN. Huge news. Says Oleg. I agree. Man, big stuff there, guys. Jessica says, thanks for joining the AMA this morning. That was for Flux. Flux AMA. Flux is doing big things too. You know what's weird? I had Daniel Keller on my space not long ago. I'm in the process, by the way. Let's talk about the spaces, actually. We had one today. As I do this every Tuesday, most Tuesdays, every once in a while we take a Tuesday off or traveling or whatever. But we've had 27 episodes where we bring on project founders and we have discussions around DePIN. This one today, we actually had Ariel with HiveMapper jumped on. We also had Nick, another special guest with Blockworks, and we discussed what's happening with token burns and some of the things that's happening with Helium and what makes sense for DePIN. I highly encourage you to listen to this. I thought it was a really, really good conversation, highly constructive conversation. But the other thing I want to say here is I'm taking these now. I spent a lot of time yesterday figuring out how to, I found a plugin that allows me to download all of these spaces. And then I got set up with an account on Spotify and also on Apple Podcasts, so I can start uploading those to those platforms so that people can easier listen to these spaces. But the one thing I was going to say is that the one where I had Daniel Keller on disappeared, man. I don't know what happened. They took it down. I had a space where we had Flux on, and I was looking through all my spaces. For some reason, X took it down. I don't know. I have no idea why. Found the YouTube channel now. Let's go. Yeah, man. Subscribe to my channel. I've got a lot of good videos coming out on there. I've got one plan I'm going to be doing on robotics, working on right now. Let's talk about DePIN though. Obviously, this over the last month, in the last hour, we've seen a little bit of a bump, but guys, the last week has not been great. So this news just over the last day since this broke, we obviously haven't seen positive price action in DePIN yet, but I do believe this does open the door for that to come. And when you start thinking about capital rotation, institutional money has led this market cycle. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we did see retail enter and get wrecked on meme coins. And I think they've been largely gone, since the beginning of this year, I would say. So it's been mostly institutional money. So that's where you really need to look at where's the money flow going to go. Now, we just talked about Solana, right? Solana is going to have all these spot ETFs approved. You've got the digital asset treasuries that have already announced major buying. All that's coming. So if you see Solana had huge capital flows come into their ecosystem, and then you add the fact that now the SEC says, hey, DePIN is not a security. You have the market structure bill coming. I think all of this money that's been sidelined and you see this influx of capital coming in Solana, they're going to be looking for projects to invest in within that ecosystem. And I think DePIN is a clear winner here, okay, because you have real utility. And speaking with Ariel, it's like, hey, Solana doesn't want to be known as the DeGen chain. I mean, I spoke with him about this. The Solana Foundation has been very, very helpful to pushing DePIN forward. I brought this up too. Let me pull up Solana DePIN. Let's see, Solana on their actual website. So this is on the Solana official website. They have a DePIN section now. Okay, so where they make it easy for DePIN projects to launch. They highlight all the DePIN projects built on their chain. So this is huge, man. They have a bunch of videos covering different DePIN projects. So all big things. I mean, I think it's very clear right now that Solana is really wanting to highlight DePIN because they are where a lot of building is taking place. Also add the fact that we have Solana Breakpoint coming up in December. I've talked about this before, but this is a big deal. You see a lot of DePIN projects or a lot of Solana-based projects really pump off of this event every year. So certainly something to keep an eye on as well. But yeah, guys, I think DePIN could be a big winner here. Now, the thing that came up on that space is the token burns and what we're seeing there, because yes, helium has become net deflationary, but there's a lot of discussion right now on X with Amir from Helium going back and forth with community members about how those tokens are being burned, and the revenue's coming in, but a lot of the token burns, in particular with Helium, you're seeing tokens burned out of the treasury. They're not going and buying tokens in the open market. And that is upsetting a lot of people because, yeah, you're seeing, like, if we look at Helium price right now, as we're seeing that it hasn't pumped that much. And everyone's like, well, what's going on here? Like, they're burning tokens. They're net deflationary. Why is the price not going up? Well, it's because they're burning tokens from a treasury. They're not buying those tokens to burn them. So any price action for HNT has to come from people speculatively buying. It's kind of disconnected with the revenue, and that's something that you have to kind of think through this. What does this mean for the price of the token? Well, for me, they have a market cap of $455 million. Let's call it. You have to be able to justify that market cap to attract people to invest in the project. So I think for me, they've got to continue increasing revenue to increase token burns to drive that market cap down. Because if you look at, let's look at DeFi Llama. Okay, DeFi Llama is a good platform. So you can see here, you can look at different metrics, but one of the ones I've been looking at is the sales or the revenue to market cap here. Okay, so PS ratio. So we sort by this. You'll see where some of these projects fall. And by the way, this sales to market cap ratio, market cap to sales ratio, if you're looking at like tech companies, sometimes you see that ratio can be like 7 or 8, depending on the company, because they expect hyper growth. That's kind of in line with what you see in traditional finance. GeoNet's kind of in that range, I believe. I was looking at, GeoNet's at 8.42. So that's actually a pretty fair valuation for GeoNet. when you look at it compared to traditional companies outside of crypto. So this is very rare. I mean, this you actually see revenue. So that's a good sign for GeoNet. But when you look at Helium, one of the things they've got to overcome here, I don't think they're that high up, are they now? They're right here. They're at 24.22x. So if you were looking at this in a traditional finance sense, Helium would still be overvalued based on their current market cap. And the big thing for them, and this is something they're going to have to overcome, is the fact that, in the early days, while they're finding their product market fit, they had to distribute a lot of tokens. They have a large circulating supply. So I think what we're seeing right now is that the revenue, the token burns, they're going to have to catch up to all this early dilution when they weren't driving revenue. And that is something that they're going to have to figure out, to drive this market cap down to a point where you have this equilibrium where the market cap is in line with what the revenue is that they're seeing. And I think that they can get there. One of the other things that Amir is mentioned is that they might start to actually buy tokens in the open market. And this came up on our space earlier with Nick is, in the early stages, it doesn't really make sense to take your revenue and buy tokens in the open market. Actually, it's a horrible fucking idea. If you're a startup and your investors saw you doing that, like basically buying back equity instead of reinvesting for growth, no one would want to invest in your project or your business. Okay. So I think what we need to see is some sort of a hybrid where in the early stages, they can burn from the treasury, which in theory is still good for token holders because it's driving market cap down and it's driving down the tokens in circulation. That allows them to, bring down the market cap at the same time, reinvest in their project for growth. But I think over time, as they become self-sufficient, we need to see this transition to buying back tokens in the open market and burning them. But realistically, guys, if they weren't doing that, if they weren't taking capital to reinvest, they wouldn't be able to make it. These projects wouldn't be able to have any long-term vision at all whatsoever. Okay. And Joe's over here saying, that's how crypto is supposed to work. Stop making excuses. Bro, if you were running a business and you had no cash flow to reinvest and grow your business, explain to me how you'd stay in business. Okay. By the time the token treasury is burned up, the carriers won't be paying nearly as much for offload. Maybe not. Maybe they won't be. But that's the thing. Once the treasury has no more tokens, they're going to be forced to buy in the open market. And that's going to be interesting to see, like, what happens at that point. Are these projects self-sustained enough that they can afford to buy in the open market and not have that capital to reinvest? Are they going to be self-sufficient by that point? And you know what? Even if they're paying less, the carriers are paying less. The big question then is, like, how much have they grown their deployments? Can they make up for the decrease that the telecoms are willing to pay with more coverage and more volume? We'll see. We will see. But that is the deal with H&T, guys. And that is the big discussion that's going on right now. Now, if they come out and say, hey, we're going to start taking a percentage of revenue and buying tokens in the open market, that's, to me, would be a big buy signal. Okay, because that's going to create actual buy pressure in the open market. And that's something we need to keep an eye on. The other thing I want to talk about today, guys, is, let's talk about Aoki real quick. Now I want to talk about Rover. Aoki announced in their Discord that someone got hacked. So there was a big sell-off that took place. You look at the last 7 days, down 27.83%. Market cap now at $66 million. So to me, I added more to my Aoki position. Of course, they have several seven-figure contracts. They're in the robotic space. Nils is a freaking G. He's out in Singapore right now. So to me, this was something that I added to, and it was an exploit that caused that big sell-off. So I generally look at those as opportunities myself if it's a project that I believe in, and I do believe in Aoki and what they're doing. That's another, I had Nils on my space a couple weeks ago or last Tuesday. So if you want to learn about Aoki, definitely check that out, guys. All right, let's talk about Rover. Because one of the things that I haven't covered is the upcoming token unlocks. This is something that people have been asking about. Okay. So you might notice that the market cap was at like 1.6 million last week, and now it's at 2.3 million. And that is because the token unlocks have started for investors and for not for employees yet, for investors. So if we look here, this is the unlock and the breakdown of the supply. Okay. So community gets 51% over time. The team has 2 billion tokens, or 20% investors, 20% or 2 billion tokens. And then you've got ecosystem, which is pretty negligible at 900,000. That's not a big number. So if we look at this, 900 million. That is, so 9% going to ecosystem. But if you look at this, guys, the team allocation, 9-month cliff on a 36-month payout. So this actually starts in December. Okay, so we don't see that yet. But this one started this month. Okay, and they had 0.733% unlocked at token launch. And then it said locked for 6 months and then vested over 24 months. So one of the things we need to start figuring here, and this is what you should be doing for all projects, especially early stages when you're looking at price projections and things. You can look at CoinGecko and you can look at the market cap. But I always, you always want to look at what does the fully diluted valuation look like? What's the circulating supply? And in this case, we have a very low circulating supply. And this is one of the reasons why I have looked at Rover, and I do like Rover right now, is because it is such a low circulating supply. Okay. But you also need to look at your time frames and start to look at what unlocks are coming. So in this case, just doing some simple math, every month now, starting this month, it already began, you're going to see roughly 82.72 million tokens distributed per month for the next 2 years. Now, at current prices at 11 or 1.1 cents, sorry, that's roughly $900,000 that's going to be added to the Rover market cap every month for the next 2 years. Okay, so call it 2 years from now, another $20 million. That's just to investors. And again, this is important. If you start thinking about your timetable, okay, well, is Q4 going to be a big run up? Could we see a surge in DePIN in the next 3 to 6 months? To me, that's kind of my thesis right now with all the regulatory stuff and all the catalysts coming, that we could see a good Q4. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, and on the investor side, by let's say end of year, that would be another $2.7 million. So that puts us at $5 million on market cap end of year. Okay. But the other thing we need to consider is that the team unlock started in December as well. And doing the math there, that's going to happen over a 3-year period. That's 55.55 million tokens that are unlocked on a monthly basis for the next 3 years, starting in December. So that's about $600,000 of market cap at current prices per month. So considering that as well, now we're up to $5.6 million at current prices end of year, just based on dilution. So not a huge deal. But when you start looking out 6 months, now we're looking at, 11, 12 million. So, when I'm looking at this, I'm not thinking, 2.3 million market cap, maybe in 6 months, if that gets to a $12 million market cap, I'm at a 6X. Well, no, dilution alone will get you up to about a $12 million market cap, 6 months from now at current prices. So that's how you have to start thinking about these things. Okay. So, then you look at the mining rewards. I think there's roughly 10.5 million per month going out, so about 115,000. So not a huge deal, but the main thing to consider here is that you have 1.5, say call it $1.6 million in market starting December, and market cap is going to be added at current prices every month. Okay, so that is something you have to consider. Now, is there still upside here? I personally think so. Okay. I played this last week in their AMA. They have a big contract they're already inking. They have 20 different proof of concepts where they're working with customers right now. Okay, those then turn into contracts. They have 300 different companies in their pipeline. So the sales side of things and the contracts and the revenue is going to be coming. So what is a realistic market cap? Okay, and that's the big question. We can look at other projects in the space. Let's pull up like a Nadix, for example. And I would argue that, Rover is differentiated because it's LiDAR data. It's not visual data. But Nadix right now is sitting at a $26.36 million market cap. Okay, so let's say Rover, got in line with Nadix. Well, in 3 months, let's say it's a $5.5 million market cap, that would be a end of year 5x for them to equal the market cap, taking into consider dilution as well of Nadix. Okay, so there's upside there. Let's look at HiveMapper. Okay, HiveMapper is another one that you could potentially compare it to. Again, it's in a different class when it comes to the type of data they're collecting, but similar concept. They're sitting at $68 million on HiveMapper. So what does that mean? Well, again, if at the end of year in 3 months, if we're at 5.5 million at current prices, 68 divided by 5.5, and then we're talking about a 12x. Okay, so those are the things that I look at when I'm looking at upside, and that is why something like Rover, compared to a HiveMapper at 68 million, that's why I look at this and I'm like, hey, this is attractive on a risk reward standpoint. It is low market cap. I know there's dilution coming, but you can start doing some calculations as to what that could look like. Okay, and obviously none of that's guaranteed, but those are the things I look at. Number one, identify the projects you like, the teams you like, product market fit. Can they drive revenue? And then number two is, how does it compare to other projects in its sector? What kind of upside could there be? Okay. And that's how I like to wrap my head around these things. But that is why, I did, and I have added to Rover. I brought it up right here after they had that exploit, kind of like what we just saw with Aoki. Okay, where you had the big sell-off. Well, it has been charging up right since then. That was when they had the Mexi listing, and we're now hovering right around 11 cents. Obviously, we just had that token unlock. So, I look for these opportunities, but then start calculating what the risk reward looks like. So to me, I think it's important to be aware of the token unlocks coming, factor that in, but I think there is still plenty of upside in my opinion for Rover. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave you with this. HiveMapper Q4 AMA coming. Margie B, thank you for retweeting my space. That's coming up on October 15th. So a couple weeks from now, we'll be talking about any big announcements. Joe thinks that all DePIN's a scam. That's why Joe doesn't have project founders on his on his YouTube channel. Oh, he gave away his YouTube channel. But you know what? I think it's important not to be super cynical, but I think it's also important to be grounded and touch grass and be aware that this is an emerging sector, guys. Crypto is an emerging sector. DePIN is very nascent. Okay, overall, a lot of projects are going to fail. Okay, the vast majority of projects are going to fail. We saw the same thing with the emergence of the internet during the .com era. Most of those companies failed. Okay, but a lot of really big projects came out of that too. So if you're willing to do the due diligence, and this is what I do every day, right, is I try to look at the teams behind the projects. I try to look at projects that have product market fit, that have tokenomics that make sense, right? And identify those projects and kind of drown out the noise. Okay, and that is the goal each and every day. Guys, I hope that you liked the show today. I'm back in Chicago, so I'll be back on my normal cadence again. Very exciting stuff. I think October is going to be an exciting month. But appreciate all of you guys. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Joe seems a little toxic. He's just a realist. He's a little cynical. It's okay. You know what? It's always good to have different viewpoints. I'll say that much. But appreciate each and every one of you guys. Make sure to share if you're on X. Make sure to definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. It is pinned in my X profile. I have some good videos coming out on my channel as well. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.